Rev up your engines! All right, with the price of used cars these days, everybody's going banana. Well, here's a guy who just bought a Corolla for $2,500, running pretty good. The check engine light's on, so we're gonna figure out what's wrong. He's already put like 8,000 miles on the thing, and it runs perfectly fine, other than the check engine light is on. But look at the car. Of course, the paint's gonna have chips and stuff. It's an older car. Bumper's been repainted. But, you know, it's got the cool hubcaps like my Celica. Those aren't real wheels. Those are hubcaps. But the car's still all in one piece. It's a CE, and it's a 4-door. Now, this is a 2003, and it's 1.8 liter inline 4 engine. Even with 225,000 miles on it, it doesn't burn any oil. There's something about Toyotas and 1.8 liter engines. My original Toyota was an 81 Toyota Corolla SR5 with a pushrod engine, and it ran forever. Matrix has a 1.8 liter 4, as does my 94 Celica. They're all 1.8 liter 4-cylinder engines. Now, of course, as time goes on, they made them bigger and bigger, but then they made those 2.4 liter 4s that burn a lot of oil. This thing, 225, doesn't burn oil. They're well-made cars. There's no arguing that. And they're zippy enough. Of course, part of this reason is he bought a standard transmission one, which undoubtedly is one of the reasons why I got such a good deal on it, because most Americans don't know how to drive standards anymore. 96% of Americans now drive automatic transmission cars. Even if you know how to drive a standard transmission, once you've already learned, you know how to drive, driving a standard's simple. On the other hand, if you never learn how to drive, don't buy a standard transmission to learn, because then you got to learn how to shift, how to use the clutch, and how to drive at the same time. You already know how to drive. It took me about an hour to learn to drive a standard. I had a Chevy Impala my father had. I had learned how to drive on that. Then I bought an Opel with a 4-speed standard. Didn't take me about an hour to figure out how to drive it, because I already knew how to drive. Typical Toyota Corolla. The AC still works. And you can see here, it's still got the original alternator. Now you might very well ask, how the heck do I know that? Well, because it does not say remanufactured on it. If it was a Toyota remanufactured, it would have said the Toyota number remanufactured. And if it would have been another company that remanufactured, it wouldn't even have the Toyota sticker on it. So it's still got the original alternator. These things are made solid. There's no arguing that. Let's get the scan tool out. Fine, that's an easy one to find. Plug it in the port, and away we go. We'll do an auto scan. And here we go, Corolla. 03. Okay, we have engine codes, PO 420, 440, 20, 440, and 446. Now, the first one, the catalytic converter is not as efficient as it was. The second one is evap emission has a tiny leak somewhere. Again, we have the efficiency is low, evap code, and vent evap code. Those are evap codes. It doesn't like the idle a little. The cat's a little inefficient, so let's start it up and look at the data. Now, luckily, the man lives in Florida. Just like Clarksville, Tennessee here, there is no emissions testing. So it doesn't matter if it says his catalytic converter is inefficient, because no test for it, as long as it runs okay. I even had a customer in Houston that ran this Toyota 4 years with that code. I would reset it, then he got the car inspected. The 5th year, it went away by itself. He changed the gas he was using. So it ran perfectly fine, and this runs perfectly fine. So that we're not going to care about. But let's look at the data. Freeze frame data. Let's see, just out of curiosity, when it happened. Going 2,600 RPM, and he was driving 85 kilometers an hour. So that's like, I don't know, 50 miles an hour or something. And just for giggles, we'll look at the evap malfunction code. See when that happened. There isn't any recorded data. So even though it's there, there's no recorded data. It's such a small thing, evap leak. Nothing outrageous yet. But you can see the evap emission monitor is incomplete. It's not completing itself. Because the evap system has a problem, it's showing some kind of leak. Runs good enough. Who really cares? Could be a gas cap. It's a little bit worn. You can put another gas cap on if you want. We're going to look under the engine for vacuum leaks in a little while, but let's look at the rest of the data. Now, the short-term fuel trim is it's only subtracting a tiny amount of fuel. Now it's adding a tiny amount. That's nothing for a car that has this kind of mileage, 225,000 miles. And you can see the ignition advance is relatively stable. So the timing chain's not worn. Goes up and down a tiny bit, but that's normal. The MAF sensor data is nice and stable. We have the misfire counts. There are none. It still fires perfectly fine. The bank 1 sensor, 1 oxygen sensor is working good at 65 milliseconds, but you can see the bank 2 sensor 1, it shows 0, but that's misleading. because this is a one-bank engine. It's only got bank 1. It doesn't have a bank 2. If it would have a V6 engine, it would have it. So the data here is 0, rightfully so, because there is no sensor there. So that's misleading. Don't get confused by stuff like that. Just seeing the small amount of fuel trim it's doing, almost nothing. Tiny bit positive, tiny bit negative. Let's look under the hood and see if we can find any vacuum leaks. We'll start it up. You'll notice you'll hear a little bit of clacking. It's actually totally normal for an engine with this mileage. Toyotas use stainless steel shims to adjust the valves. They're directly under the camshafts, right? You're supposed to adjust them every once in a while, but that consists of measuring them all, and if they're off, you got to take the engine apart, take the cams off, take all the stainless steel shims off, and number them so you know which one goes where, and then depending on how far each one was off, you measure the thickness of the old ones, and if it's too big of a gap, you have to add that many thousandths of an inch and buy a shim that size and put it in. It costs a small fortune to do it. Now, this one's obviously never been done, and I've never done it on any of my cars. And I've had them with 300,000 miles, and they still run good enough. You really don't need to worry about it. Now, when they got really bad, they wouldn't run right. This thing runs good enough. You live with a little bit of noise. It's just how these engines are when they age. So it's pretty much normal. Thing's in excellent shape. Still gets good gas mileage. Now we got between 37 and 38 miles a gallon driving that thing over here. So, obviously, it still runs good. Don't mess with success. So now we'll take it for a spin. Because there's no obvious vacuum leaks, I would have known that because it wasn't running rich or lean. The only thing I can see that's really been changed here is at one point in time somebody put a motor mount. They eventually wear out on anything. He happens to be an accountant, so he's got a spreadsheet here of his gas mileage and stuff. So, you know, he's serious about it. I know what it is about accountants, but my original accountant, when I started my import auto repair business, he was actually a millionaire. He drove a Chevette. Yes, a little rolling pile of crap. The guy was a millionaire, but he loved making money. He got so much per mile for driving his car during his work, doing accounting stuff, that he actually made money on his car, because back in the days, this is in the early 80s, people had gas hogs. So they gave so much money for mileage for the car, depending on gas mileage and stuff, and it's based on gas hogs. He had a non-gas hog, so he actually had a profit driving his car, and he liked that better than anything else. And yes, it's an old car. For those of you who don't know, this is called a hand crank window. They didn't have electric motors. It's a hand crank. And this is a standard transmission too. You probably don't know what that is, but they work quite well. Well, now we're taking it right out in the country here. We'll see how much horsepower this thing has. It's not known as a race car, but we're gonna come to our little race drag strip here. And here we are at the line of the drag strip. So, here we go. Give it some gas. Hey, it spun the tires. Look at that. It's actually not all that slow. It does have variable valve timing, and it's the intelligent VVTi. So, hey, this thing's got some decent get up and go, because it's got a standard transmission in it. So if you're whining you can't find a good used car these days, paid $2,500 for this 8,000 miles ago, still runs like a top. These Corollas can basically run forever. Yeah, it's not a luxury car, but it runs perfectly fine. He had no problem bringing it from Florida to Tennessee here and driving it back. They're great cars. You can get them for a decent price. And if you don't know how to drive a standard, it's easy to learn. You get better gas mileage, less repair bills. These things can run forever, virtually. So what if they're high mileage? You can buy a high mileage one, still have a lot of life. Look, this thing doesn't even burn oil because it's a 1.8. Take my advice. You want to buy any Toyota used, get a 1.8. They last the absolute longest and get the best gas mileage too. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Edward says, what kind of gas should I put in my 93 Camaro Z28? I'm concerned. It's an older car and I'm not familiar with these older engines. Some say 89, some put in 91 because high octane. Well, here's the thing. Back in 1993, you could get much higher octane gasoline than you can today. And even using the 91, it may or may not run correctly. Start with the 91 and see what happens. Now, it's a 93 Z28. I don't know what mods have been been done. A lot of guys get those Z28s, they mod them. So if I were you, check into it by starting by doing a compression test. If it's super high compression, you might have to buy aviation fuel to make that thing run right. The gasoline back in those days was a higher octane than it is today. But start with a 91, and if it runs good, that's what I would run on it, because it is a high compression engine. It's going to run better that way. Back in those days, you needed higher octane gas for the bigger engines. Today, you don't, because they're all computer controlled and they can compensate through computers and stuff, but that has none of that. So start with the 91 and see what happens. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.